Hey everybody, this is Gary Yao. I'm back again with Frank Lopez. Frank, how are you?
Good, Gary. How are you?
I'm good. So let's delve into it. Been talking about probate for a while now, and one thing that comes to mind is like how to do probate, what the process. But what if I want to avoid probate altogether? What can I do so that I can avoid this whole process for me and my family?
Gary, that's a great question, and I'm glad you brought it up. So there's, probate has to do with a very, negative uh, 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 idea, which is death. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't get any more negative than that.
yeah,
So,
it's very
the,
morbid.
so the bottom line is, if you're dead, there's not a lot you can do.
Mm. Yeah, I
So
suppose.
and that's why there's so many probate cases because and I think I've mentioned this in the past that the title company that we like to work with a great deal is Lawyers Title.
Hmm.
And my representative from Lawyers Title once told me that I think greater than three-quarters of the real estate in the country is not held in a trust,
Hmm.
meaning that three if that meaning that three-quarters of the people in this country are not prepared to avoid probate. Because to answer your question, there's only one way to avoid probate, and that's getting a trust.
That's the only
Right?
way.
That is the only way of avoiding probate.
Because we
So,
mentioned that even a will wouldn't help you avoid probate. And that was something that is concerning because I thought, well, people don't even have a will, let alone, a trust. So that's interesting.
well, yeah, and you used the perfect word, Gary, morbid. It's a morbid topic, and nobody wants to think about, their own death. And if you're preparing a will, that means you're
Mhm.
giving your own the end of life some thought.
Yeah, you give some
Um,
thought to it. So,
right.
and that is a
So
big step for a lot of people. We don't
it, it,
want to
it
think
really
about
is.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, who wants to think about that? So most people won't even take that step, but a lot of people do. Now, here's the big misconception is most people think that if I put a will together, I'm
Hmm.
covered.
Hmm.
That's not true. That is not true. What'll happen is you have a will when Gary's gone, first thing that the courts will ask will is did Gary have his assets? And let's talk about real estate. Did Gary have his home in a trust? Well, no, he didn't. Okay, that means that we have to go to probate. Did he have a will? Yes, he did. Okay, perfect. Let's bring the will, let's take it to court,
Hmm.
and then let the courts handle the transfer of the real estate to whatever the will says it should be transferred to.
Frank,
So, or to whomever it says it should be transferred to.
I do
So,
have a
but
question.
sure.
Before I proceed, you mentioned that the only way is to have a trust, right? What if I have my properties on an LLC?
That is that's a form of ownership, Gary, but that still doesn't tell it doesn't tell the world what happens once Gary's gone.
Mm,
It's just that's like saying, I'm going to put all my properties in the Gary Yao Corporation.
right?
Well, perfect. Okay, so the Gary Yao Corporation owns the real estate, not Gary Yao. But the day that Gary Yao's gone, well, what happens to the assets that are owned by the Gary Yao Corporation?
I guess
Because
it's in limbo.
technically, yeah, yeah. So takes us back to probate. So the bottom line number one is if you have no will, you're here in the state of California, everybody has a will. But if you haven't put together your own will, then the state of California uses its will.
Mm,
And the state of California will tell you this is how we're going to distribute the assets of Gary Yao.
mm,
Um, and it's mostly based on family and who is closest in family. Now, let's say you do have a will, and I've seen this happen so many times, and attorneys like to talk about this all the time. They call it a poor man's trust. And what they mean by that is, and yes, they do. And
That's kind of
what
mean.
they hello, yeah, well, hey, their words, not mine. But yeah, they'll call it a poor man's trust. Where let's say that Gary has two kids, right? Which you
Yes.
do.
Hmm.
And Gary has real estate, and Gary thinks, well, I'm going to plan ahead. I don't want to think about my passing. I don't want to think about dying. But what I will do is I'm going to put all my real estate in my two children's name
There you go.
so that when Gary's gone, well, I've got two kids, the real estate's going to be split 50-50 because it's
Hmm.
in both their names, right?
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
I
I
don't have,
think that sounds about right. If I put it under their
well,
name. Yeah.
yeah, you put in their name. I don't have to worry about a will. I don't have to pay for a trust. And by the way, trusts are not cheap,
Mm.
but super, super inexpensive compared to a probate. And,
Yeah.
and let me throw those numbers in real quick. Um, a trust will cost you, all depending on how, complicated your assets are. Somewhere it could cost us less than $1,000, could be over, a couple $1,000s, all depending on the amount of assets that you hold.
Hmm.
But a probate here in California will cost you and I'm just using very average numbers, but it'll cost you somewhere 30, on the low end 30,000 on up. So
30,000.
30,000. So
Yeah.
yeah, big, big difference. So which is why making a tr or having a trust is makes so much more sense financially, just in terms of cost. So, but let's talk about the well, the poor
The
man's
poor
trust.
man's solution.
Or yes, so Gary puts his real estate in both of his children's name. Gary's gone. The kids say, okay, well, we split the property evenly, 50-50. But let's say Gary did that 10 years ago.
Hmm.
And 10 years ago, let's say that Gary's real estate portfolio was worth $1 million.
Hmm.
Okay. So fast forward 10 years later, Gary's gone. Now the kids are putting the property in their name. They still have to go through probate, but the kids are putting the property in their name. And let's say that in 10 years, Gary's portfolio of real estate is worth three instead of $1 million, it's worth 3 million.
Yeah.
Okay. So and that's not uncommon. Real estate's going to go up, especially over
Yeah.
10 years. So so here's what happens is when Gary's gone and Gary's children put the property in their name. So no, I'm sorry. Gary already put the property in their name 10 years ago. So
Hmm.
what they do is they go through probate, and then the court says, well, wait a minute. Property's already in the kid's name. They put it in their name 10 years ago.
Hmm.
And 10 years ago, the property was worth $1 million.
Yeah.
Today it's worth 3 million.
Okay.
So the kids have to pay the gain.
The 2 million
They have to
difference?
pay,
The
yes,
gain or the $2 million?
yes. So you just by using that poor man's trust,
Uh-huh.
you just penalized your children with a $2 million gain.
Wow. Wait,
Yep.
so even if I added them, let's say 10 years ago,
Mhm.
and does my name have to be attached to the property for them to get penalized? Let's say, for example, that I put only on my children's name, but I take myself out of the title.
Yes,
Still.
if you were to do that, you
Hmm.
put the property in their name 10 years ago.
Hmm.
Fast forward to 10 years later,
Hmm.
Gary's gone, Gary's out of the picture.
Hmm.
Property still has to go through probate because there was no trust. So in the probate, the courts are going to say, hey, children of Gary, yes, we're going to put the proper, well, we're going to transfer everything over to your name. And we see that Gary already put the property in your name 10 years ago. Well, guess what, kids? Because the property was worth $1 million 10 years ago, it's worth $3 million today. we're going to have to charge you a tax on your $2 million gain because you guys have been owners for this property for 10 years.
What if
And the property's worth $3 million now, not $1 million.
okay, let me ask you this then, because I'm thinking of scenarios, and I'm pretty sure you have seen clients doing this, where this is called the inheritance ahead of time, where a parent, especially in Asian communities, they well, I'm going to give you the money, and I want to help you buy the property, and we can buy the property together, me and my child. And then after buy, I take myself out of the title, but the loan is still under my name. I will take care of paying the loan, but the title and the property is yours. Will that still be something?
Well, as long as they don't sell, but the day that they do sell, there's going to be a gain.
Yeah.
So because it all the gain is based on when you became the owner. And
Mm-hmm.
again, if you added your kids to your property 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
then the day that they decide to sell,
Mm-hmm.
they will be then the tax is based on when they became the owners, which in our example is 10 years ago. Or in the case of probate, let's say the kids don't want to sell.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to keep the property, but they still have to go through the probate court because there was no trust. There's only a will, and go in the probate process. The court is going to say, well, the court actually will appraise the property, and the court's going to say, oh, well, 10 years ago, we appraised the property 10 years ago at $1 million. We're
Mm-hmm.
now appraising the property today, 10 years later, at $3 million. So Gary's children, you have had a $2 million gain. So when we settle this estate, you're going to have to pay property tax on that $2 million gain.
Got it. So
So,
in
so
short,
in short, the state of California does not like the poor man's trust. Well, no, I take that back. They probably do. They probably love it. And here's why.
yeah, you pay taxes on it. Of course they love it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So no, you actually no, you're right, right. The state of California does like it. The persons that aren't going to like it, Gary's kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the
Now,
solution is make sure you have a trust.
yes, you have a trust because here's the difference. If you have a trust, in the trust is still the property is owned by the trust. Gary's real estate portfolio is owned by the trust. Gary passes away and the trust is worth 3 million, excuse me, the trust is worth $3 million. Gary's children inherit the property at the time of his passing, and they also inherit the property based on that $3 million value. So there's no increase. There was no gain.
Mm,
So guess what? Gary's kids pay no property, no tax on the gain.
that's what we
And that
want.
was and that's what you want.
Awesome.
And
Frank.
that's and that's why it is just probate is one, it's avoidable. We
Uh-huh.
already said how with the trust. And two, it is expensive. And expensive not only in terms of the court cost, but what it will cost your heirs, your children.
Got it. Frank, our time is up. Thank you very much for sharing this really good insight with me. And if people want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
Our best number is 626-289-1111, or you can always go to my website, franklopezbroker.com.
Awesome. Frank, thank you very much. I will talk to you next
Okay,
time.
Gary, talk to you later.